Namaste and welcome to Pramanik Astrology channel. I'm your host Prasad Mahazani, help you raise your vibrations and become your true self with the help of Vedic astrology. In this video, we are going to talk about the transit of Jupiter into the sign of Capricorn for all the 12 ascendants. We are going to talk about which houses Jupiter rules, where it is transiting, what could be the impact on each of the ascendants. Okay, but before that, we are going to look at the transits, but before that we have to look for the important dates. Important dates for this transit is Jupiter is going to get into the sign of Capricorn on 20th November 2020, and it will be into the sign of Capricorn till November 21, 2021. Okay, and then Jupiter goes retrograde on the June 20, and when it comes to nakshatra, right now, just on 30th October, it has moved to the Uttarashada Nakshatra. But for Capricorn sign, it will move into the into the Nakshatra of Shravana on 7th of January 2021. And in Dhanishta Nakshatra in March 2021. And in Shatabhisha Nakshatra in May 2021. And it will again go back to the Dhanishta on July 2021. Okay, so these are the important dates for the transit. Okay, apart from this, I'll be making the timestamps for this video because this video will be in several parts. You can jump to those parts directly. So let's get started with Aries Ascendant. Now, let us talk about the Aries Ascendant. For Aries Ascendant, Jupiter is ruling the 12th house and the 9th house and is placed into the 10th house of the horoscope and is aspecting the 2nd house of finance, 4th house of your emotions and 6th house of your daily work. Okay, it is one of the best positions. Aries Ascendant is enjoying the very good yoga with this transit because the 9th lord is conjunct with the 10th and 11th lord. Okay, so the lord of the gains is connected with the lord of the work and the lord of the fortune. So 9, 10, 11 lords are placed into the 10th house, and the 9th lord is aspecting the 2nd house of money. So it will bring in the money. You will try to expand your resources. And with the 7th house aspect, it will aspect the 4th house of your emotions, and you will feel good about yourself in your home environment. Okay, with the 9th aspect, Jupiter aspects the 6th house of the dates, delays, and more than that, it is also about the enmity, dates. And Jupiter is the planet which is great with financial management. Okay, so you will start focusing on the financial management with this. You will start focusing on the dates you might have, and you will have financial gains which will help you to cover these dates during this 1 year. Okay, so make most of this. With the 6th house Jupiter, it also helps you to manage your finances well. Okay, now let us talk about the Taurus Ascendant. For Taurus Ascendant, Jupiter rules the 8th house and the 11th house of the horoscope. 8th house is a Dushtana house, which is all about ups and downs, birth and rebirth, about the longevity, about the inheritance and legacy. Now you have an expansive planet like Jupiter ruling this house and is placed into the 9th house of the horoscope. When 8th lord goes into the 9th house and connected with the 9th lord and aspecting your 1st house, 3rd house and the 5th house, when you have Jupiter aspecting your 1st house, it brings in unique perspective and an altogether different orientation towards life, a positive outlook towards life. You will have a deep knowledge which will change your perspective towards life. With the 7th house aspect, Jupiter is aspecting the 3rd house, which is about your intellect, which is also about your younger siblings, and it is also about your communication. Okay, so you will see the expansion in the information you have. It also shows the positive relationship with your siblings as well. Now, Jupiter is aspecting the 5th house of the horoscope. 5th house is about your education, intellect, children, and creativity. So you will see the positivity of the Jupiter in these areas of the life. Okay, this Jupiter will bring in positivity and the creativity in this area of the life, the 5th house. Okay, now depending upon your dasha, you will get the results. I always say that dasha is more important than the transit, and we have already made separate videos on how to judge a transit. Okay, from moon, from lagna, ashtakvarga, and the lords transiting through the lords, all those stuff we have already discussed. Okay, so you can go and watch those videos as well. So don't just rely upon the transits. Dashas are far more important, always remember. Now let's look at the Gemini Ascendant. For Gemini Ascendant, Jupiter is ruling the 7th house of the relationship and travel and about the partnership, and the 10th house of work and career. Now Jupiter is into the 8th house of the horoscope. What is the 8th house? 8th house is Dushtana house, right? But 8th house is 11th from the 10th. What is the 10th house? 10th house is the house of gains, and the 8th house is, no, 10th house is the house of career, and 11th house is the house of gains. 8th house is 11th from the 10th. So it shows gains from your work, and it shows gains from your work, as well as it shows a unique timing of work. Okay, I have always seen that when you have the 10th lord into the 8th house, it shows that you will have a unique timing of work. Like maybe you are working in a night shift, or maybe you are working 4 hours in the morning, a break, and again 4 hours in the evening, so something like that. Not a regular 9 to 5 job is what I can see from this for you guys during this time. Okay, from the 8th house, Jupiter is aspecting the 12th house, is aspecting the 2nd house, and is aspecting the 4th house. Okay, so Jupiter is aspecting the 12th house of your foreign travels, expenses, and losses. And when it comes to loss, it is also the house of spirituality. And when a planet like Jupiter aspects the house of spirituality, it makes you feel driven and drawn towards the spirituality. You will be more interested into the spiritual practices. From the 8th house, it also aspects the 2nd house of the horoscope, which is the house of finance and resources. Again, an expansion into the finances. 8th house is also the house of your inheritance and other people's money. So you might get money from other people, right? 8th house is also the house of the inheritances and legacies. When you have the positive planet like Jupiter aspecting the 2nd house of finances, it can give you money during this time as well. Okay, you will also get a financial mentor during this time. Next is, it is aspecting the 4th house of the horoscope. 4th house is the house of your home environment, and now it has the expansive, positive, benefic energy of Jupiter into the 4th house of your chart, that is your home environment. It will make you large hearted. You will feel that goodness in your heart. You would always want to help people during this time, and this is a wonderful time to have. Next is Cancer Ascendant. For Cancer Ascendant, Jupiter is ruling the 6th house of the horoscope and the 9th house of the horoscope. 6th house is about the dates, delays, arguments, diseases, all the bad things. And now it is ruled by Jupiter. And 9th house is all about the positive things in life, which is fortune, bhagya, travel, higher belief, and all those good things in life. Now, the Jupiter is placed into the 7th house of the horoscope. Now, ruling the 6th house and the 9th house, it is going into the 7th house of the horoscope of relationship and, business and exchange. I told you that Jupiter is great with finances. Okay, so this is a great indication that you will have a partner, and you will have, if you are looking for a business partner, this is also a great time to have a partnership. Okay, though it will have the delays or dates because involvement of the 6th house, it is also the 11th from the 9th house, right? The 9th house is the house of bhagya, and the 7th house is the gains from that. So the 9th lord is into the 7th house. The 11th house from itself shows gains. Okay, but make sure you're clearing your dates. From the 7th house, it is aspecting the 11th house of gains, where Rahu is placed in, which is already amplifying your gains, which is already giving you huge financial gains during this time. Okay, now Saturn is also placed in there, so 7th lord is also placed into the 7th house. Okay, but when it comes to the relationship, it can be a little challenging for you, because now see the 6th lord of Jupiter and the 8th lord Saturn is conjunct into the 7th house. Okay, so when it comes to the relationship, you have to be careful and avoid any kind of arguments. Okay, this seems challenging. Now, it is also aspecting the 1st house, which is about yourself, and now it is going to change yourself, and you might also feel that some kind of friction because of the involvement of the 6th house lord. But at the same time, it will bring in the positivity with the 9th house lord. Okay, so it will give you a mixed result. It is also aspecting the 3rd house of the horoscope, which is all about the younger siblings and media and communication. Okay, so next we are going to talk about is Leo Ascendant. Leo Ascendant is about, so for Leo Ascendant, Jupiter is ruling the 5th house of the horoscope and the 8th house of the horoscope, and now it is placed into the 6th house. So when the 8th lord goes into the 6th house of the horoscope, it creates a Viparita Rajyoga. And when 5th lord goes into the 6th house, you have to be careful with whom you are connect with romantically, right? The lord of the love is getting into the 6th house of enmity. Okay, so Jupiter from the 6th house is aspecting the 10th house of your career. So now it is bringing in the recognition, reputation, authority, and you become optimistic about your work. It will bring in new opportunities for you. From 6th house, Jupiter is also aspecting the 12th house of the horoscope, which is the house of foreign things. Okay, so it will also make you connect with the people from the foreign culture on a day-to-day basis. Why day-to-day basis? Because it is involved, because it is into the 6th house. 6th house is the house of your daily routines, right? And it is connected with the 12th house. Okay, you sometimes we don't realize that we have we don't realize that we have connection with the foreign clients or foreign things, but just keep a close eye on that. Like sometimes I talk with people, they say I don't have any connection with the foreign people, I have this placement, you're saying that you might have a connection, but I don't see any connection. But only on weekends sometimes I sell my product online or sell my products, and I sell them to foreign people. Okay, and they don't even realize that they have this connection. Okay, so don't just focus on the job, but just look at your life where you get that connection. Another thing, from the 6th house, Jupiter is aspecting the second house of wealth, resources, finances. Okay, now it will make you work and earn. See, when Jupiter is in Artha Trikona house, it aspects all the Artha Trikona house. So for you guys, Artha, money, becomes important element during this 1 year. Okay, that's for sure. Next, we are going to look at the Virgo. For Virgo, Jupiter rules the 4th house with the Sagittarius and the 7th house with the Pisces. And Jupiter is placed into the 5th house of the horoscope. 5th house Jupiter is aspecting the 9th house. 9th house is about the fortune and travel, and you might feel like you want to travel to the pilgrimages and or study some spiritual books or the religious stuff. Okay, because the Jupiter is placed into the 5th house of intellect, and now it is aspecting the 9th house of the positivity, higher belief, and travel as well. And Jupiter itself is a planet of expansion and goodness in one's life. Jupiter is also aspecting the 11th house with its 7th aspect, and will help you have financial gains. And with the 9th house aspect, it is aspecting the 1st house of your horoscope. And we have seen when Jupiter aspects the 1st house from the 9th house, we have seen, but when it aspects from the 5th house, it shows an intelligence, and you might use your intelligence for, that intelligence might bring in change in your personality. That's how we can interpret it. Okay, and all this is for your highest good and greatest growth, because it is Jupiter. Okay, so whenever 8th house lord is connected with any of the self-defining houses, it brings in the intensity. Okay, it brings in the intensity in one's personality. So you might experience intensity in your life during this time. Okay, though Jupiter is not about intensity, it is the 8th lord connected with the ascendant brings that element. Next one we are going to look at is the Libra. For Libra, Jupiter rules the 3rd house and the 6th house of the horoscope, and Jupiter is placed into the 4th house along with Saturn. So when we are looking at Jupiter into the 4th house conjunct with Saturn, it aspects the 12th house of the horoscope, which is the house of spirituality. It aspects the 10th house of the career, and it aspects the 8th house of the hidden knowledge, of the occult, mysticism, astrology, psychology, things buried underground. All these can be seen with the 8th house. Okay, now Jupiter is aspecting this and bringing in the positivity in these 3 areas of your life. And when Jupiter is transiting through the 4th house, it also shows that you will have positive environment, happy environment at your home. Okay, this is also one of the signification of this transit through the 4th house. Okay, now let us move on to the Scorpio Ascendant. For Scorpio Ascendant, Jupiter rules the second and the fifth house. Second house of finance, fifth house of creativity, intelligence, children, education. Jupiter is transiting through the third house of the horoscope, which is the house of communication. And when you have Jupiter transiting through the third house, you will develop the habit of reading books. You will read a lot during this time, and you will read fast. You will develop an ability to read faster during this period. Okay. Next is now, and it is also aspecting the seventh house of the horoscope, ninth house of the horoscope, and 11th house of the horoscope. One Kendra house, seventh house, one trinal house, the ninth house, and it is also aspecting the 11th house of your gains. Okay, so it helps you have financial gains and rise in your career as well. Okay, and it also brings in travel in your life during this 1 year. Okay, next is we are going to talk about the Sagittarius Ascendant. For Sagittarius Ascendant, Jupiter is ruling the Ascendant and the fourth house, and is transiting through the second house of finances. Now, for all the Sagittarius people, this is a great time to start investing. This is a great time to start building wealth. It is a time when you will get a financial advisor. Someone from the finance industry will help you to earn money. Like, you are not aware of the investments, and somebody comes into your life and tells you about how to invest in stocks, how to invest in mutual funds, or how to invest in bonds and all sorts of instruments. He will make you aware of it, and which will bring in money for you. So make most of this investment, make most of this transit from the second house. Okay, but as it is connected with the Saturn, don't try to speculate during this time. Okay, investing will be helpful, but don't be involved into the speculation. Next, it is aspecting the sixth house, again the house of the wealth. Sixth house is the house of wealth, which is the house of Artha Trikona houses, which is also the Upachaya houses, which grows with time. So this positive impact of Jupiter will make you work to get that financial stability in life. Okay, you will be inspired to work, to earn more, to serve more, and to earn more. Okay, so 2, 6, and 10. Next, Jupiter is also aspecting the 10th house, and you will experience the expansion into the work area as well. Next, we are going to talk about the Capricorn Ascendant. For Capricorn Ascendant, Jupiter is transiting through their Ascendant. This is huge. Whenever a planet is transiting through your Ascendant, it changes your life. Okay, and depending upon the planets placed in your chart, let's say you have Mars placed into the first house, into the sign of Capricorn, and now Jupiter is transiting over your moon. It means a lot. An exalted planet in the Kendra is transiting, and a most benefic planet is transiting over one of your exalted planets, okay, into the Kendra, which is the first house, which is also Kendra and trine. So it makes a person energetic and feel good about themselves. Okay, if Saturn is there, moon is there, Mercury is there, and Jupiter is transiting over them, what Jupiter does, it gives these planets positivity, and it gives them the wisdom. With whatever understanding they have, Jupiter brings in the wisdom in that area of the life. Okay. Next, it also aspects the fifth house of the horoscope. Fifth house is the house of the creativity and the children, education, intelligence, strategies can be seen with the fifth house. Politics to some extent can be seen with the fifth house as well. Now, Jupiter is aspecting the fifth house of the horoscope. Okay, Jupiter is aspecting the fifth house, and Rahu is already placed into the fifth house for the Capricorn people, right? So is already transiting through the fifth house. Okay, and if you look at that, fifth house is 10th from the 8th. Excuse me. Fifth house is 8th from the 10th. So fifth house is the ups and downs in your career. And when Jupiter is aspecting the 8th house from your career, it brings in sudden positive changes at your workplace. Okay. Now, depending upon the planets placed in your chart and the dashas you're going, these things will differ. Okay. Next is it is aspecting the 7th house, which is all about relationships, and it brings in that positivity into the relationship. And it is aspecting the 9th house of the horoscope as well. Now, Aquarius Ascendant, Jupiter is ruling the 11th house of the horoscope and the 2nd house of the horoscope. Amazing. 2nd house is the house of finance, 11th house is the house of gains and finance as well. Now, Jupiter is ruling 2 of the finance houses for Aquarius Ascendant and is placed into the 12th house of loss and the spirituality and foreign things. Okay, but I always talk about the 12th house things, 12th house as one of the interesting house. Okay, 12th house is second to the 11th house, right? It is like a dhanasthan to the labhasthan, and it is the labhasthan, that is the 11th house, to the 2nd house. It is that powerful. And now you have the lord of the 2nd house transiting through the 12th house, right? And is connected with the ascendant and is placed or is transiting through the 12th house of your horoscope. So your focus during this 1 year will be into the 12th house things. What are the 12th house things? 12th house is about the abstract things. You will be interested towards the 12th house things of like UFO, like out of body experience, astral journeys. You will suddenly start taking interest into the spaceship, or what is the NASA's next program, what are they doing, or something like that. It will spark the interest into the 12th house things. It will also make you go deep into the spiritual practices. Okay, because of the involvement of the ascendant, and that ascendant lord is Saturn, which is well placed and well dignified with the Capricorn. Okay, so it brings in that serious approach towards the 12th house things. Now, let's talk about the Pisces. What's happening with Pisces? Okay, so for Pisces, Jupiter rules the 1st house of the horoscope and the 10th house of the horoscope. 1st house is the house of yourself, your personality, and now the lord of the 1st house is going into the 11th house of the horoscope, right? And it is also connected with the 12th lord of the chart in transit. So what it shows is it brings in the financial gains, it brings in the authority, it makes you known personality in your sphere of work. Why? Because your personality, the 1st house and your 10th house is into the house of gains. So your personal influence will increase during this time. You will be known in your sphere of influence, in your work area. People will appreciate you. You will establish yourself as an authority in your workspace. Okay, with the 11th house, Jupiter is aspecting the 3rd house, 5th house, and 7th house. Okay, 3rd house is about the younger siblings, 5th house is about intelligence and creativity and children and education. You might feel like reading more books, reading spiritual books, maybe religious books. And it also makes you connect with your younger siblings and also connect with your partner. Okay, and you might give financial advice to the other people, because 5th house is the house of speculation. But when Jupiter is there, it can also give you good investments and gains from those investments. Okay, this was Jupiter into the sign of Capricorn, as much as I could hold, grasp, and share with you guys. If you want to dive deep into Vedic astrology, these two videos on your screen will help you to dive into Vedic astrology and know more about it. Sending you tons of positive energy, sending you high vibes. See you in the next videos. Love and peace.